So you'll remember a friend of yours who was round a couple of weeks ago, and he was challenging you to hypnotise him because he believed he couldn't be hypnotised, and you completely sidestepped that and ended up doing a demonstration on me, just much like we've done there, where my arm would levitate. And for somebody who didn't believe in hypnosis, he was suddenly amazed by the fact my hand was lifting up, and he was saying, "Oh, no way, that's not happening." But, you know, it was.
And indeed he thought you were faking it at one point.
But what he said was, "That's not happening." It clearly was, because my hand was up there somewhere, whatever was behind that.
Well, of course, he was right. his truth also is right. As far as he was concerned, that wasn't happening because it's impossible. It's just like the chair being invisible. He's working on a long-established cultural hallucination. And the cultural negative hallucination is that those things aren't there. Yeah. If they don't match up to our understanding, then they don't exist. It's like the ostrich sticking its head in the sand.
There was one more thing. Why did we consciously rehearse it first? That's something that I've never done.
Right, okay, muscle rehearsal is a really valuable tool for a lot of different things, but particularly for an ideomotor response. I mean, basically what you're going to do, we're coaching and training the muscles how to do it. So anything that you want to practice and get good at, you do practice, you do warm-up exercises, you make sure you're in the best condition to do it. And if you warm up the muscles of the hand and give them an example so they've experienced, like they're modelling for themselves what it's going to be like. And then having experienced it, the brain can very quickly work out what needs to happen to make it happen again, because it knows and it remembers what muscles were moving to do that. So although the movement the second time is an unconscious movement, not a deliberate one, it's informed by previous experience.
Okay. Now, overall, it seems to me that there is a difference between conscious movement and unconscious movement, between play acting and being in a trance state.
I would agree, yes.
But from what you were saying, that if a client is consciously playing along, then at least you have compliance from them.
Yeah.
And that it's not as good. Is that fair enough as a trance state? But it's still, you can still utilise it.
It might well still be the very best therapeutic advantage you're going to get. Now, there's all sorts of questions about, how do you respond to something that isn't going the way you wanted it to go? Now, obviously, as a hypnotist, I have a sort of model of, I'd like to do this. If that works, I'll do that. If that works, I'll do that. And it'll lead on to that. Yeah. But when you come to the point where what you're doing doesn't seem to be working, or you think, well, it looks like it's working, but I know that's not genuine. The question is, what do you do? And there's all sorts of strategies, depending upon what the purpose of the session is. So, with some clients, I would think, I won't even mention it. I'll pretend I don't know. With other clients, I think this will be a really useful thing to challenge, because it probably reflects another dynamic in their life. It's probably related to the problem, the issue, and by not actually naming it, then we may be missing part of the job we're working on. So it really depends upon the situation, and you can only play it by ear and think, okay, in this situation, I'm going to do something about that. What I'm noticing is not responding the way that you would do if you were in hypnosis, and some people might take that as a form of resistance.
Right.
Yeah. It's a defense mechanism to stop things working by acting good. Yeah. If I'm good, Mummy won't punish me. Yeah. Or in this case, if I'm good, Daddy won't punish me. Or Uncle Laurie, whatever it might be. So some people comply just to try and please the therapist, so the therapist won't give them a hard time and attack their problem. So, in a sense, they're paying you to help them resolve a problem. Would I collude with their sabotage plan? Maybe. Probably not.
At the end of the day, resistance, if they do it a lot, is still a pattern, and any pattern can be utilised.
Yeah. So, the next sort of things, I mean, this was a demonstration of one particular technique for a particular reason, but later videos, we'll be exploring things like, what happens when somebody presents their patterns.
Yeah.
And their patterns are counter to therapy. The patterns, by their very nature, want to stay where they are. I mean, patterns do have various characteristics, and one is to make you forget. So if you decide to change things, the pattern has a self-built-in sabotage which says, forget it. And it might take a day, it might take two. People commit themselves to doing things like, say, for instance, listening to a CD, a recording, to reinforce the work they've been doing in the session. And sure enough, over the course of the week, they might play it once or twice, but they soon forget. Their pattern makes them forget. Is one way of looking at it. Another characteristic of a pattern is it's persistent. It wants to stay where it is. And if you make any gesture to change that, even for the good of the whole system, that pattern might want to dig its heels in and find ways of tricking you into stopping. Patterns can be tricky. Just as hypnotising hypnotists can be tricky.
Yes, they can be, can't they?
Yeah. You don't want to mess with hypnotising hypnotists. They can be tricky.
They're the worst kind.
Well, I think we've done, what, about half an hour there. Should we round it off?
Yeah, I think so.
Anything else you want to ask about?
I think you'd pretty much covered it. I think all I would add about patterns is the great thing about them is they happen a lot. If something is a pattern, if you miss it once, it'll come up again. Yeah. And you'll see it.
And it'll come back the second time slightly stronger than the first time.
And very often they're present in all levels of a person's life. They'll represent themselves different ways. So, but that's a topic for a future talk.
Okay, good idea.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Gary. Always good to work with you.
Okay.
It's Gary.
See you next time.